What's up, everybody? Two lives, one day. We up on it on Tuesday, Halloween. Super excited. Super excited to talk with Jennie Raymer. Oh my God, a little more. Make sure I'm in the middle.
Oops, my camera's the wrong way. There we go. Hi.
What's happening?
How are you?
Wonderful. Happy Halloween.
Happy Halloween. Isn't that exciting? My kids love it. I'm not a huge dresser-upper.
No? How come?
No. It's just never been my thing. I'm not a big, creative costume person. I love the people watch.
What are your kids getting dressed up as?
So we have Princess, and the Grim Reaper, too. My oldest son isn't dressing up anymore.
Yeah, I did. Oh, I dressed up. I don't usually dress up, and I was Superman. So I had a Superman onesie from about 7 years ago that still fits. And so I went all out and got my Superman on.
Superman onesie that still fits. Yeah. I applaud you.
So what's happening? I'm super curious to know how your buyers are getting deals done these days with interest rates so high. What's the secret?
On the residential side or the commercial side?
On the residential side.
So a couple of things. Creative financing is number one. I think having an array of options to choose from. For example, the FHA 203K is a really, really good option if you're looking to buy a multi-unit property. Checking into multi-units is another thing. It is an option. I've done a VA loan as a multi-unit, obviously resident living in it, but owner-occupied, I should say. That's definitely an option. Exploring gift money. If you have family members that want to support you and see your homeownership journey go through fruition, ask them if they're willing to give you a gift. Have those conversations with your family members up front to see what you can come up with. You'd be surprised. Understanding grants.
What's the maximum amount you can get gifted, Jennie?
1%.
1% of the total purchase price?
Let me rephrase. You have to put 1% down of the purchase price yourself. You have to come up with that. You can't do all gift money, but you can do the difference up to 20%.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Depending on the property, yes. And then also grant money, too.
What do you have to do to get grant money?
Grant money goes to the state. So there's state grants, for example, first-time homebuyer programs, things of that nature.
Okay, yeah, like Chenoa Fund, is that a grant?
Say that again.
Chenoa Fund, have you heard of this program?
No, I'm not familiar with that. What is that?
There's a Chenoa Fund. Yeah, it's a type of grant program. And then there's also NACA, is that right? NACA, N-A-C-A. You heard of this program too?
I've heard of NACA.
Yeah.
And then we also, IDA, the state of Illinois.
Oh yeah, IDA too. Mm-hmm. Yeah. That's
Mm-hmm.
three. You got Chenoa
Fund. Go ahead.
I was going to say, that's three. You got Chenoa Fund, IDA, and NACA. I'm trying to think of any other ones, but they're just a little bit more favorable.
It just depends on the county, the state. I'm licensed in multiple states, so it just depends. A lot of them are income-based programs. You have to qualify for them, and a lot of them some of them you have to do classes for.
Oh, you have to take classes to get the grant?
It's a certification course, like with IDA. You take a certification course. It's pretty much an understanding of what homeownership is. They want to make sure that people understand what they're signing up for and how the programs work, and that they're successful in their homeownership.
That makes sense.
I think it's smart. A lot of these requirements were put in place post-'80s with all of the fraud that was occurring, right? And I think understanding what you're signing up for is very, very important. It's one of the most common mistakes that I believe a lot of first-time homeowners make, is not really understanding
what programs they're signing up for and what their loan requires and includes, and having an exit strategy, right? If this is a loan that you don't want to have forever, you have to understand the grant you're signing up for, because some grants require that you live in the property a certain time. Some grants require that you keep the loan for the life of its term. And if you ever refinance, then you have to pay it back. So these are all things that a good loan officer will inform you of to make sure.
Yeah. What percentage of deals you close do grants? It's got to be super low.
It's only when the money is available and you have to qualify. It's not everybody, but definitely if you're somebody on the lower income range and you have everything else minus that money, there are options available for you.
Okay. So what else is going to fall under that creative financing term? We threw out the FHA 203K. We threw out some of these grant programs that are awesome. Is there anything else that would fall under that umbrella that you'd be recommending right now?
For creative financing, co-signers.
Yeah.
If you have limited income, or you have the income but your credit is questionable, adding a strong co-signer, having a good reserve or asset that you could add to the equation. A lot of people don't think 401ks or IRAs are of value, and they are. Just because you aren't necessarily utilizing those funds, having them on your application is so important because it shows proof of reserves or that there's money there for an emergency purpose. Utilizing your 401k. A lot of 401k companies do programs. They do incentives if you use your money specifically for a first-time purchase. They won't charge you as much in fees, or they'll provide you a loan option because of the fact that you're buying the first home. So understand what programs, having a good financial advisor that understands those programs is really, really important. And I always bring that up with my first-time home buyers. Talk to your 401k specialist. There might be something out there that you're not aware of. Without
that's a golden nugget right there. Yeah, if there's a program within your 401k that you can borrow against it.
Yes, it's either a withdrawal or it's a loan. There's two different options that you could choose from. Typically speaking, I'm not an expert, don't quote me on this, but a 401k, if you do a withdrawal, then you may have to pay a penalty for doing that withdrawal early. But because it's for a purchase of a property and you're a first-time home buyer, there may be different ways that you could take that money out and not be penalized.
Interesting. Yeah, that's awesome. I was wondering too, before you were a loan officer, what did you do?
I have been in finance for 15 years. I actually started off as an auto loan, personal loan, credit card, a consumer loan representative. And I sort of progressed my way into the different journeys of finances, right? You start with a personal loan or you start with a credit card, then you get a car, right? And then after you get a car, you get a home. So as I went through my journey, I realized that the homeownership journey is something I really want to be a part of and learn more about, because I wanted to be a homeowner myself, right? So that's sort of how I began my journey into mortgages.
And why is it that the homeowner journey is so important to you?
Homeownership is important to me because there's so much value that I think goes way beyond the four walls of your house. The key word for me is equity. When you have property, you have equity, and this equity you can use in so many different ways. Equity is essentially the value of the property, in addition to obviously what you borrowed. So as you own your property, as years go on, your home assesses more value. You can utilize that as a line of credit. You can use that line of credit to purchase more property, right? And it's value that you don't necessarily need to have in your pocket, as in cash, liquid value. You could use it as that line of credit option and be able to lean on it.
Yeah, I don't think there's ever a bigger decision that most people end up having to make than their home purchase, is there?
The biggest purchase, typically speaking, in anyone's life is a home. Yes.
Yeah. What are so first-time home buyers, what are your kind of top 3 guidelines to keep them on the rails? I know, with me getting into the real estate game, getting the first purchase under your belt, I've always felt like that is the hardest step on the journey to becoming an investor. What do you think the top tips are you can give to first-time homebuyers?
Do not buy the first thing you see, number one. Number 2, spend the time to find your team that's going to represent you. And your team consists of the loan officer, the realtor, and if you are looking for an attorney, which I strongly recommend, a good attorney. And not relying on what you hear on the internet or what your family or friends tell you is the best advice. Sometimes doing research and really connecting with an array of people in the industry may be a better bet for you than, following what, Joe Schmo did 20 years ago when he bought his property in the 80s, right? The market is ever changing, and doing your research up front is key. And I say that in more than one way. I mean, buying a home to just buy a home and not see the whole journey that you may utilize that property for is so important. Like you said, looking at a property as an investment, not the end all say all, is so important. Seeing it from a different perspective. And you're great at that. I think you're a great person to be able to have a conversation with them and say, look, these are my goals. Having a strategy is very important.
Yeah, I think it's always super challenging, when you're going to end up having to spend that much money. I think the thing that happened with me that was difficult was I didn't know what I didn't know, and I didn't have the right people on my team, like you're saying, to kind of guide me through that process. And knowing that, like, my natural thought was like, oh, I need to put 20% down, and that's almost far from the case. I don't know what the stat is anymore for like the average home buyer and how much they're putting down, but it's often far, far less than that 20%, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm going to give you a good example. A VA individual, again, we're talking owner-occupied properties here. We're going to stay on the residential side since I feel like this is the topic. Owner-occupied investment properties, you have advantages and you have disadvantages. The key to the advantages is understanding how to use them to your advantage and understand the disadvantages and create opportunity out of it. For example, if you're utilizing a property with 4 units and you're a veteran, you can actually finance that property at 100% without putting any money down because of the veteran programs available as long as you live in it. A lot of veterans don't know that. That's a huge advantage. Number 2, when you're looking at investment properties and you're owner occupying them, you could do what's called the 203K, which that you only have to put up to 3% down, not 20%. So it just depends on how many units, right? The area is key. I think that's very, very important because some of those 203K loans, because they're an FHA structure, they could be very sticky. You have to be careful with the property, but then also understanding an exit strategy because you don't necessarily want some of these loans to full term. You want to be able to get out of them quickly.
Yeah, here in Chicago, is there any super hot neighborhoods that you're recommending to your clients to take a look at?
You know what? That's more of a realtor question. I wouldn't even want to misspeak. In my personal opinion, I think, Cook County has its pros and its cons. But I would say realtor, ask a really educated realtor if you need one. I have great hookups. I can connect you guys with a realtor.
Yeah, who are some of your top realtors that you work with that you recommend on a regular basis?
So depending on the area, so Dave LaSavio is out near the northwest suburbs. He's amazing. He's been in the industry for a very, very long time. Catherine DeGoma is in Barrington. She's also very familiar with the real estate market. And then she's also a part of Captivate Real Estate Group, which is located in many areas, including Chicago. They just opened up a new office. I met their whole team. They're amazing.
Oh.
And then Megan McMillan, she's awesome as well. So I've got a few.
Yeah, you probably have a huge Rolodex. So I'm super curious. We ended up networking and connecting through the face of community and business.
Yeah.
Can you tell me a little bit more about how you got involved in that, the people you've ended up talking to, like through that platform, and kind of what your experience has been with it?
Yeah, so the Face Up Community Business is a podcast community that specializes in bringing different people from different genres of entrepreneurship together. We have 30 different channels to choose from, ranging from chefs to artists to real estate to lawyers. And we all utilize this community to not only engage with others that are entrepreneurs, but also allow people outside the community to share their story and their mission. The studio is located off of Madison Street next to United Center. In addition to recording in person, we also have events, which if you're interested after this, shoot me in a DM and I could tell you all about it. But we network, and you came to one of my real estate mogul investor summits, which was very successful. And yeah, we do stuff like that all the time to help each other.
Yeah. And then remind me, so there's several different podcasts that you feature different guests on. Is that correct? And then one of them is the Real Estate Moguls. There's another one, the CEO Roundtable. How does someone get on one of the podcasts if they want to get on the podcast with you? So
there's two ways. The first is I reach out to individuals personally. Or if you're super interested and I don't know who you are and you want to share your story, then you could DM me directly and I can meet you and discuss, the journey and the community and see if you're a good fit.
Yeah, I don't think there's anything that's been more valuable in my kind of career journey than networking.
I agree.
Yeah.
I agree.
Do you have any
go ahead.
I was going to say, I'm a naturally kind of introverted person. Is there any kind of like tips and success tips that you found that makes networking easier?
I think for me, the number one thing about networking is to be genuine in your conversation. Yeah. I think a lot of people ask questions and don't really care about the answer. And they don't listen well. So my number one would be have genuine conversations. And number two is listen. Actually listen to what people are saying, make eye contact. I know in a room of 100 people, you're trying to meet everybody, but that's not necessarily the best strategy to go about a networking room. It's really having genuine conversations, and then those conversations with maybe 5 or 6 people will turn into something more than trying to have a conversation with everyone in the room, because it comes off that way, right?
Yeah, I think it's definitely more of a quality over quantity thing.
Yes, absolutely.
2 ears, 1 mouth.
Right.
But listening is super difficult. I don't think I was naturally always a good listener. I think it's something that's like slowly cultivated, and making sure you have your 100% presence with exactly what you're doing. I think, in today's day and age, there's more distractions around us than there's ever been before. In the past, it used to be that we didn't have enough information. Now it's almost like we have information overload and we don't know even which way to go, which strategy to use. Is there anything that you've done as, a woman who's growing her business to eliminate distractions in your life?
That's a good question. I think setting healthy boundaries is really, really important. If you are trying to build your business and you have all of these people that you're trying to follow up with and all of these people that you're trying to build your brand with, understanding what your non-negotiables are and continuing that relationship and setting those healthy boundaries is really, really important, because I feel like you could easily spiral into something that may be fun or something that may be interesting, but not necessarily profitable or beneficial to your brand or your business. And that is, to me, one of the most strategic moves that you can do, but takes time. I mean, you really have to be thoughtful.
Yeah, what are some of the non-negotiables that you've implemented in your business?
Somebody that's goal-oriented is very important to me. if you're in a room and you don't really, if I ask you, you know, what are your goals for the next 2 years, and you don't really have an answer, that's questionable to me, right? Because then if you're not goal oriented, your thoughts aren't as organized, your movements aren't going to be as strategic, which means for me, you're not going to move at the same pace I want to move.
Yeah,
Right?
of course.
You're not on my energy level, right? So goal oriented is very important. I also ask them about who they are. You know, do you have a family? Things of this nature, because I think morals are important to me. You know, ethics are really important to me. If I feel like somebody's going to be sketchy or, you know, questionable with how they maneuver themselves in the world, then I don't necessarily want to do business with them either.
Mm.
And I have to be able to trust them. So I always do some type of, if I feel like this is on a question, I'll do a follow-up meeting, and I'll have questions related to their business and sort of get a better idea of, okay, so what was the hardest deal you ever had to come by? How did you overcome it? You know, asking very specific questions in that follow-up to get a better understanding of who they are, because trust is really important.
Yeah, I think that's definitely something that's cultivated over time too. And the more, at least for me, the more transparent and vulnerable I can be, the easier I've found, you know, it creates an easier circle of trust. One of the things you mentioned a little bit earlier was setting goals. Do you have a goal setting process that you do? We're coming up on the end of the year. Everyone's always got their New Year's resolutions and this and that. Do you have a specific process that you go through in your business to set goals?
For goals, this is something that I actually learned from a real estate class I'm taking. And it's having a 10-year strategy, and then working back 10 years to 5 years, and then 5 years to 3 years, and then 3 years to 1 year. So having more of a long game, and then once you have that long game, setting up your strategic year plan of, you know, how are you progressing throughout that goal process. And I just learned this 6 months ago. So bear with me with the strategy. I'm not going to be able to say it, you know, perfectly, but that's essentially the strategy I'm moving forward with. So this year, at the end of this year, I'm changing a lot of my strategy and how I'm going to be spending my day.
Mm-hmm.
And that's specifically because of the 10-year plan that I have.
Yeah,
what's
your 10-year plan look like?
It looks like owning a lot of property. It looks like taking trips with my kids. It looks like helping my family and getting them involved in real estate. It looks like creating strategic partners and opening up LLCs, and tax strategy is definitely involved in there. Debt strategy is definitely involved in that.
Yeah, your partner, Eugene Marshall, he's a tax strategy expert, huh?
Yes. Is he on?
No, he's not. But I happen to have him up on my screen, and you talk about tax strategies and having the right people in your corner.
Yeah.
And, you know, over a 10-year period, you know, taxes are the one thing. Once you start making money, Uncle Sam's going to start calling. Real estate's probably one of the best avenues there is to start deferring some of those taxes.
Right. And that's what I mean about team. It goes back to having a great team, because your plan will change. That 10-year plan is going to evolve, right? The 5-year plan is going to evolve, but the fundamentals should pretty much be intact. Finances, real estate, right? Maybe you have vacation in there. Maybe you have additional education somewhere in there. I think, you know, investing in yourself is very important. But for me, the top two are the financial strategy and really building a successful team of experts around you, whether it's from legal teams to financial teams to power partners. If you don't have that, I would do that first, honestly, because your goals will completely change once you speak to somebody who knows those things. It's like when you build a house, right?
Exactly.
You're not going to build it with a guy that doesn't know what they're doing. I mean, hopefully, I hope not, right? So, go ahead.
hopefully they just call us. So
That's
you
what I
hire
was
someone who
going to
knows what
say.
they're
They
doing.
need somebody like you guys, giving them the good foundation because you've done all that due diligence. You found the good contractors. You know who does what well.
Yeah, for us, goal setting, I happen to have my book too. So we run off this book here called Traction, book by Gino Wickman.
Okay.
And, they break everything up, kind of like you're saying, right? You have a 10-year vision. We actually have this little thing back here. That's called the VTO, the Vision Traction Organizer.
Okay.
And basically, it breaks it down exactly like you just said. You got your 10-year goal, you got your 3-year goal, you got your 1-year goal, you got your 90-day quarterly rocks, and then you got your, weekly rocks and daily tasks that are going to get you to those goals. I like to break it down to myself with the idea of vision, long-term, objectives, kind of in the quarterly realm, and then tasks on the daily week. So I think vision, objectives, and tasks, and break those all down from that kind of 10-year, 3-year, 5-year, 1-year, 90-day, and that cycle of checking in every 90 days. Because I know for us and our team, it doesn't take but about freaking 85 days, 80 days, and all of a sudden it's like, man, we're not quite in sync.
Right.
And so every 90 days we have our quarterly meeting, and we come out of that meeting, it's like boom, lights are on and we're back to doing what we're doing. But at least for us, that reset of regrouping as a team, seeing if the objectives we had targeted for the last quarter are on track, and then really kind of looking for those really big needle movers in the business. I think too often it's super easy to do what's easy, opposed to like doing that one thing, right? I'm finishing the book, The One Thing, again for like the third time. Find that one thing that's going to move your needle the biggest. For your upcoming year, Jenny, is there anything that you kind of have locked in that you think might be your one thing that's going to help grow your business more than anything?
Good question. The one thing that's going to move my needle the most.
Yeah, so I mean, while you're thinking, it's like you might have like social media, you might have, different paid marketing. We're trying to like really crack that code ourselves on like what's going to be that huge kind of 10x needle mover in the business. Because it's just, if there's anything of like substantial value that I get from all this networking and talking to different people, it's like figuring out what works from people who've already been there before.
Yes. Yeah, you practice what works well, right? You don't need to be changing it or creating the new wheel. I think two things for me. Number one is really refining my mission statement and asking for the business. I think it's great if you meet all these people, but if you don't get down to the nitty-gritty of why you're there, sometimes these conversations end up being for naught, right? That's the first thing.
Yeah, I think we actually, that's one of our objectives for this quarter too, asking for referrals. It's just like something so simple of actually going back to past clients and saying, hey, we're taking on more work. I'm looking for more loans to underwrite. Like, do you know anyone? And it's just like such a simple thing to do that, at least for us, that we've overlooked for a little while. It's like, hey, sometimes we gotta go back and just ask people what we need. I know oftentimes I'm super timid to speak up. And then, we often paint pictures, or at least me, it's like we paint worst case scenario pictures in our mind. Then we ask the question, and it's like, boom, all of a sudden deals start coming. And it just takes that courage, that strength to ask the tough questions, and even just ask for help, ask for new business. And then sometimes the floodgates open.
Yes. And then I think the second piece of the puzzle is spending your time efficiently. I think I'm one of those people, again, I left the corporate world after like 11 years. So, breaking that mold and really wanting to get my face out there, I did a lot of things, right? I'm at that point in my career where I really want to refine where I want to spend my time and who I want to spend it with. It's sort of like watering the grass that you already have, rather than accumulating more, working with what you've already accumulated and making something of that,
Yeah. Back to quality over quantity.
Yes. Yeah. Because you can go everywhere and be there all the time. But if you're not accumulating better than what you already have, I'd say start with what you have.
Yeah, you can do anything but not everything. So focus is definitely key. Is there anything you do to start your day off with focus?
You know what? I wish I did. That's on my list for next year, is spending time for myself and working on that mental, spiritual, emotional piece, because that's so necessary. This economy hasn't been the funnest for loan officers. So, you know, trying to cope with the stress and take care of yourself on top of hustle, I think is the one thing that I need the most work on. So I would love to hear what you do.
Yeah. I mean, I'm a structured, regimented person, and you know, like any of us, it's super easy to fall off the bike. But you know, one of my favorite quotes is the highest achievers get back on track the fastest. And so for me, it's like I try to set a baseline for everything that I do. So you know, my baseline morning routine, it's locked in and loaded. You know, on my alarm clock, 4:20. I pound 40 ounces of water. I immediately make my bed,
the water,
stretch, I read the Bible, I do my 5 gratitudes, I run 2 miles, I get back, I do a core workout, then I'll take a cold shower. After the cold shower, I'll make my shake, I'll meditate, and then we got our 7:15, or if I have time, I'll read for 30 minutes to an hour, and then we have a 7:15 daily standout at our business. So
I'm sorry, what time do you wake up?
4:20.
For any specific reason 4:20?
So I used to smoke a bunch of weed. And I actually quit.
I knew it.
I used to quit. Yeah. So I quit smoking weed and I quit drinking. And so, yeah, it's just a constant reminder of like, that's a number that used to mean something else to me. And now it means it's the time I'm getting up and starting my day.
That's very smart. Very, very smart of you to use something that maybe wasn't necessarily the best for you and make it positive.
Yeah. So
very, very cool.
You know, I got up today. I went back to sleep though. Full transparency, everyone. I went back to sleep. I was feeling a little stuffy. And so I was like, I got up and went back to sleep from 5 to 6:30 and then got up at 6:30. So
yeah. So
you know, I slept in a little bit.
How do you get up? And I ask this question to you because in an industry like we're in, where you have long hours, you're networking, you're really doing your hustle, how do you get up so early? What's your secret?
Yeah, I mean, for me, I used to think it was all about getting up right. But for me, it's about going to sleep right. And so just like I have a morning routine, I have an evening routine. It's pretty super straightforward, but it gets my mind in the right path. You know, I don't watch TV before I go to bed. I follow the 3-2-1. So if you think 3-2-1, eat 3 hours before you go to bed, no drinking 2 hours before you go to bed, and 1, no screen time for an hour before you go to bed. And then right before I go to bed, I have no TV in my room, and then I do stretch, 3 wins, and then I'll pray. And then I actually switched more recently. I have a fiction book in my bed, so I read tons of self-help psychology books, but I'm reading The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, the Chronicles of Narnia, and that's really just to kind of release my brain of all these other things going on, and then my brain knows, like, once I'm starting to read that book, it's like it doesn't take but 5 or 10 pages and I'm knocking out. And so when I go to bed right, I've created that consistent cycle, so my body knows it's time. And then when I get up in the morning, one of my favorite things is I actually have a Google Home, Hey Google, and I got a smart light. And so my light turns on at 4 and then gradually gets to its brightest point at 4:30.
Oh, that's
and so I don't even get woken
cool.
up by an alarm. And it's honestly like the most kind of like peaceful waking possible.
You don't wake up spooked.
Mm-hmm.
Essentially.
Yeah, because most people, like, who wants to wake up to that?
Right.
And then I was actually just talking to our project manager about this today. It's like I asked him, what's the first thing you think about when you get up? The very first thing, For me, it used to be like, oh, I'm tired, And then as soon as I think that, it's like I substitute a new thought in, and I'm like, I'm so grateful to wake up today. Thank you, universe, for getting me up and living another day. And so it's like I try to substitute, you know, these negative thoughts in with positive ones immediately, and then all of a sudden the negative ones are gone, and it's like it's time to get up and get going. But yeah, having that light that comes on automatically, and then water immediately.
Yeah,
you know,
water.
That's
That's my one. I got to do the water. I got to do the water.
Yeah, you got to do the water. I do 40 ounces, boom, straight. You know, I never thought chugging beer would come in so handy, but I can chug water faster than your normal person immediately. And, you know, I quit drinking coffee too, you know.
I
just
did too. That I did do. And I can immediately after about a month, I could tell that I wasn't getting that 2 o'clock crash that caffeine from coffee does to you. I mean, immediately. Plus, it's a dehydrator. And it stains your teeth. So there's just so many negatives to coffee, guys. Go to tea. It's better.
Yeah, so that's how I start my day. We talked about stress management.
Yes.
I'm about to go to the gym. That's another way I manage my stress. But I'm going to be checking in with you, Jenny, to make sure how you're starting your day. Because
I would appreciate it. I would appreciate it. I would definitely appreciate it.
Because there's been nothing that's changed my life more than getting that morning structure and having that time to myself, you know, and especially with kids, you know, it's so much harder with the kids. So it's like, you got to have that time before they wake up, because otherwise, you know, you've already lost the day.
No, I agree. I definitely agree. And the strategies that you apply to, you know, your health, if you spend that much energy, you know, on other things, there's no reason why you shouldn't be doing it to yourself as well, or for yourself, I should say.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to get back a hold of you soon. We're going to check back in.
Please.
We're going to see what your morning routine looks like.
Yeah. And we got to talk investment properties, because I do that too. On the residential side. So we're gonna explore other things besides the standard residential structure.
Yeah. Let's hop on another live in the very near future and dive into those details.
Awesome.
All right.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye, guys.